Hey, my name is Daniel. I'm 30 now. And on my 29th birthday, standing at the fence between our houses with a beer in my hand and my friends laughing in the background, I joked with my married neighbor, "Will you marry me?" She was 38, wearing a silk blouse that caught the porch light, and she smelled like citrus and something I shouldn't have noticed. Everyone thought it was funny. But she looked at me with these eyes that saw straight through me and whispered, "What if I say yes?" That night, she slipped a card under my door that said, "You shouldn't joke about things we both feel. Drop the city you're watching from in the comments. And tell me, would you have said yes?" I moved into the carriage house on a Thursday in early spring. The kind of day where the air smells like wet grass and possibility. I drove up in a borrowed moving van, parking crooked in front of the garage because I'd never driven anything that big before. The cul-de-sac was quiet. Too quiet for someone who'd spent 5 years in a third-floor walk-up, where you could hear everyone's arguments through the walls. The landlord met me at the garage, handed over the keys, and said something about trash days and parking rules. I wasn't really listening. I was too busy looking at the small staircase on the side of the building that led up to what would be my place. My own place. Finally. I was hauling the third box up those stairs when I first saw her. She was in the yard next door, kneeling by a rose bush with garden shears in her hand. The sun caught her hair, light brown with hints of gold. She wore jeans and a silk blouse that moved when she did, and even from 20 feet away I could smell something clean drifting from her open kitchen window. Citrus, like lemon cleaner mixed with sunlight. She looked up, smiled, and I nearly dropped the box. "You must be the new tenant," she called out, standing and brushing dirt from her knees. "I'm Claire, from next door." Her voice was warm, easy, the kind of voice that makes you feel like you've known someone longer than 30 seconds. "Daniel," I managed. Just moving in." "I can see that." She walked to the fence between our properties, still holding those shears. Up close, I could see she was older than I'd first thought. Maybe late 30s, laugh lines around her eyes, a thin gold chain at her neck. "Need any help?" "No, I'm good, thanks." "Well, if you need anything, we're right here. My husband Richard and I." She gestured back at her house. Perfect white siding, perfect flower beds, perfect everything. "He's traveling for work right now, but he's around plenty. Established narrative foundation with character introduction and atmospheric details." Good start. I'm establishing the first meeting, Claire's appearance, the sensory detail of citrus cleaner, and subtly mentioning her husband, while also noting his absence. The narrator is attracted but respectful. Need to continue with the rest of Chapter 1 and move through the outline. The way she said it, like she was trying to convince herself. An older woman walked by on the sidewalk just then, moving slow with a small dog on a leash. "That's Mrs. Green," Claire said quietly. "She knows everything about everyone. Fair warning." Mrs. Green stopped, introduced herself, and immediately commented on where I'd parked the van. "Cars matter around here, dear." Her smile was kind, but her eyes took in everything. My wrinkled t-shirt, the Michigan plates on the van, the fact that Claire was still standing at the fence talking to me. After she left, Claire laughed softly. "Welcome to the neighborhood." I spent that first evening unpacking in the dim light of my new apartment. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living room with a window that looked directly over the Monroe's backyard. I set up my desk there, plugged in my laptop, and tried not to notice how easily I could see into her kitchen windows. Around 9, I heard the hum of sprinklers starting up and down the block, Rhythmic, steady. The porch light at the Monroe house clicked on, casting warm yellow light across their yard. I lay in bed that first night telling myself it was just a friendly neighborhood. Just a nice neighbor being welcoming. Nothing more. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through cheap blinds and the smell of burned toast. My toast. I'd forgotten I wasn't in my old place anymore, where the toaster took 3 minutes instead of 90 seconds. When I opened my window to let the smoke out, that citrus smell drifted in again from next door. I took the trash out around 10, and Claire was already outside, wearing running clothes and pulling her hair into a ponytail. "Settling in okay?" she asked. "Yeah, except I murdered some bread this morning." She laughed, a real laugh. "The recycling goes in the green bin, by the way. The HOA has opinions about that." "Of course they do. They have opinions about everything." She stretched her arms above her head, and I made myself look at the ground. There are secret spies everywhere. I'm only half joking. Over the next week, I fell into a routine. Work from home, web design projects that paid just enough. Coffee in the morning, groceries on Tuesday. Taking out the trash felt like a social event because I'd always run into someone. Usually Claire. She'd wave from her car, joke about the weather, ask how the internet connection was holding up. One evening, I was bringing in groceries when I heard the low vibration of an engine, deeper than most cars. I glanced over and saw a black SUV pulling into the Monroe driveway. Richard. I'd never seen him before, but I knew it was him by the way Claire came out to meet him. He was tall, graying hair, expensive suit even at 7 p.m. He kissed her on the cheek while holding his phone to his ear, then disappeared into the house, still talking. She stood there, for a second, holding her own phone, before following him inside. Mrs. Green appeared on her evening walk, stopping to chat about how I was adjusting to suburban life. "It's different," I admitted. "You'll get used to it." She glanced at the Monroe house. "They're lovely people. Richard works so hard. Claire must get lonely with him traveling so much." The way she said it felt like a test. "I'm sure she's fine," I said carefully. Mrs. Green smiled. "I'm sure she is." That weekend, the cul-de-sac had a casual yard sale thing. People dragging old furniture and boxes of books onto their driveways. I found an old gaming console I didn't need anymore and set it out with some books, mostly to blend in. Claire came over, laughing. "You can bring your stuff closer to our driveway if you want. We get more foot traffic." So I did. We spent the afternoon together, really, talking between customers. She brought out lemonade in glass mugs that clinked softly when we set them down on the wooden fence post. She told me about an interior design client who wanted coastal grandmother vibes in a landlocked suburb. I told her about a website project for a guy who kept asking if we could make it more like Apple. We laughed at the same things. Richard showed up once, mid-afternoon, to grab something from the garage. He gave me a polite nod, shook my hand, said, "Good to meet you, David." "Daniel," I corrected. "Right, Daniel." He was already looking at his phone again. "Sorry, work call." And he was gone. Claire's smile stayed in place, but something behind her eyes dimmed. Mrs. Green walked by around 5, commenting on how Claire's always so good with the young people. I wasn't sure if it was a compliment or a warning. That night, lying in bed with the window cracked, I heard the sprinklers and watched the glow of Claire's porch light seep through my curtains. I replayed her words about making the street feel younger, told myself I was overthinking it. The next morning, I saw Claire in her garden again. Some of the roses looked damaged, petals on the ground, like they'd been through something. I was taking out the trash when she looked up and waved me over. "Need help?" I asked, leaning on the fence. "I had a rough week," she said quietly. not looking at me, just focusing on the damaged stems. The roses suffered for it. Want me to carry that bag to the bin? Would you? I did. And when I came back, she was still standing there, hands on her hips, staring at her garden like it was a problem she couldn't solve. Most people only ask about Richard's job, she said suddenly. Or about the house. They don't really ask about me. That sounds lonely. She looked at me then. Really looked at me. Yeah, it does. We stood there for a moment, the fence between us, before she shook her head and smiled. Sorry. I don't know why I said that. It's okay. I should let you get back to work. I'm just upstairs if you need anything. She nodded. I know. Over the next couple weeks, I started noticing things I shouldn't have noticed. How often she was alone in that big house. How the light in her kitchen stayed on late into the night while she moved around, cooking for one even though she'd made enough for two. How the low vibration of Richard's car engine only came home every few days. And when it did, it often left again before morning. I'd work late at my desk by the window, and sometimes I'd see her silhouette through her kitchen window, just standing there with a mug in her hand. We texted once. She sent me a photo of her streaming a show successfully after I'd helped fix her Wi-Fi earlier that week. Finally works. Thank you. I sent back a thumbs-up emoji. That was it. But I looked at that text thread more than I should have. My 30th birthday was coming up, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Mark called me on a Wednesday afternoon, loud and obnoxious as always. Dude, we're doing something for your birthday. No arguments. I don't really. Barbecue at your place, Saturday. I'm bringing people. You're providing the backyard. Mark, I don't think... Too late. Already told everyone. I sighed. Fine, but keep it low-key. When have I ever not been low-key? Literally every time. I ran into Claire at the mailbox the next day and mentioned it, hesitant, not sure if I should. My friend's basically forcing me to do a birthday thing this weekend. Just a few people, barbecue. I'll try to keep it quiet. Her face lit up. How old are you turning? 29. Oh my God, you're a baby. She laughed, but it was warm. Not mean. I'll bring dessert, if you don't mind your neighbor crashing. You don't have to. I want to. As long as you promise not to play sad boy music from your laptop all night. I smiled. Deal. That evening, I bought string lights and cheap folding chairs, tested the speakers, set everything up in the small backyard space I was allowed to use. When I plugged in the lights and they actually worked, I felt stupidly proud. Mrs. Green walked by, somehow already knowing about the barbecue on Saturday. The street is lucky to have a young man who likes to host, she said. I wasn't sure if that was approval or surveillance. The night before my birthday, I lay in bed watching Claire's kitchen light glow through my curtains and wondered what she'd think of my friends. Wondered if they'd say something embarrassing. Wondered why I cared so much. Saturday arrived sunny and perfect. Mark showed up early with his girlfriend and a cooler full of beer. By 4, there were maybe 10 people in my backyard. Co-workers, a couple of Mark's friends, music playing low, burgers on a grill I'd borrowed. It was nice, normal. Then Claire appeared at the fence around 6, holding a cake box and a bottle of wine. Permission to enter? Of course, I said, already walking over to let her through the gate. Mark whistled low. Dude, your hot neighbor came to your party. Shut up, I muttered, but my face was hot. I introduced her around. Everyone was immediately charmed. She had that effect on people. Easy conversation, genuine interest in whatever someone was saying. She asked good questions, and actually listened to the answers. Richard was traveling, she explained when someone asked. But he insisted I still come, didn't want me sitting home alone on a Saturday. The way she said it made me wonder if Richard had actually said that, or if she was just being polite. As the sun started setting, the hum of sprinklers began up and down the block. Someone suggested a card game. We pulled chairs into a circle. Claire sat next to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something light. Floral, but not sweet. Mark got drunk faster than everyone else, telling increasingly embarrassing stories about me at work. Claire laughed at all of them, which somehow made them less mortifying. Okay, Mark said, standing up with his beer raised. Speech time. Daniel's turning 29, ancient, almost 30, basically dead. Thanks, Mark. So let's hear it. What do you want most in life right now? Everyone looked at me. I panicked, turned to Claire because she was right there, and the words just came out. Will you marry me? I meant it as a joke, a deflection, something to make everyone laugh and move on from the awkward speech moment. The backyard went quiet for a second. Then Claire looked at me with those eyes that always seemed to see more than I wanted them to see, and she said very quietly, "What if I say yes?" Only I heard the seriousness in her voice. Everyone else erupted in laughter and cheers. Mark shouted something about me shooting my shot. Someone wolf whistled, but I was frozen, cake plate in my hand, staring at Claire. She smiled, soft and sad and something else I couldn't name. The porch light behind her glowed warm, framing her in yellow light. And I knew in that moment that something had just changed between us. The party wound down around 10. People left in small groups, hugging me, wishing me happy birthday, making jokes about my proposal. Mark was the last to leave, slapping my shoulder. "You actually did it, man," asked out the hot neighbor. "Respect." "It was a joke." "Sure it was." He winked. She smiled, though. That's a good sign. "Mark, I'm just saying, don't sleep on it." After everyone left, I cleaned up the backyard, collapsed the chairs, turned off the string lights. The neighborhood was quiet again except for the distant hum of sprinklers shutting off one by one. I went inside, locked the door, and sat on the edge of my bed. My phone was next to me. I typed out a text to Claire. "Thanks for coming tonight." Deleted it. Tried again. "Sorry about the weird joke." Deleted that too. Set the phone down. Ran my hands through my hair. I got up to lock the front. Ducked her one more time, just to give myself something to do. That's when I saw it. A small envelope on the floor slipped under the door. My hands shook when I picked it up. Inside was a card. Simple. White. Her handwriting. "You shouldn't joke about things we both feel." "See." I sat down hard on the floor, back against the door, reading it over and over. The yard sale came back to me. The lemonade. The way she'd said most people didn't ask about her. The damaged roses. The late-night silhouettes in her kitchen. Her voice tonight. What if I say yes? I put the card on my nightstand, turned off the light, lay there staring at the faint glow of her porch light bleeding through my curtains. Told myself it was just a joke, knowing it wasn't. I barely slept. When morning came, I showered in a daze, burned toast again, and tried to act normal. The citrus smell drifted in from next door, telling me she was awake too. I took the trash out just as she was wheeling her bin to the curb. We both hesitated. Then waved. "Morning," she said. "Morning." "Recovering okay? You had quite a few drinks last night." "I'm fine. Thanks for the cake." "Of course." A pause. "Your friends are fun." "They're idiots, but yeah." She smiled. "The good kind of idiots." We stood there, 10 feet apart, both of us knowing there was an elephant between us the size of a house. "If you need anything," she said finally, "I'm usually around." I heard what she didn't say. "I'm here. I'm available. I'm alone." "Same," I managed. "Just upstairs." She nodded, turned, walked back toward her house in that way she had, where every movement looked effortless. I went back inside and called Emily, my older sister. "How was the party?" she asked immediately. "Good. Weird. I don't know." "What happened?" "I joked about proposing to my neighbor." Silence. "Emily? Please tell me you're joking." "It was a joke," I said quickly. "Everyone was drunk. It was stupid." "Daniel, is she single?" "No." "Then what the hell are you doing?" "Nothing. I'm not doing anything." "Good. Keep it that way. Married neighbors are not crush material." "I know." "Do you?" I didn't answer. After we hung up, I worked, tried to focus on client emails and website mock-ups, but my attention kept drifting to the window, to her yard, to the chain around her neck where she kept her wedding ring when she was working in the garden. That evening, I saw her through the kitchen window, just standing there, hands around a mug, staring at nothing. I wanted to text her, wanted to walk downstairs and knock on her door and ask if she was okay. Instead, I scratched the wooden window frame with my fingers and watched the porch light click off earlier than usual. The card was still on my nightstand. I reached out and touched it once before rolling over. This was where harmless stopped feeling harmless. The next day, Claire was at the mailbox when I checked mine. She had a package, awkwardly balanced. I offered to carry it. "You don't have to." "I know." We walked to her porch together, and she set the box down with a small sigh. "Client samples," she explained, "for a project I probably won't enjoy." "Why take it then?" "Because Richard says we should save more. Because I'm home alone anyway. Because—" She trailed off, shook her head. "Sorry, you don't need to hear this." "I don't mind." She looked at me for a long moment. "You really don't, do you?" "No. Most people want to fix things, or they change the subject. You just listen." "Is that weird?" "It's rare." Over the next few days, a new routine emerged. She'd bring me leftovers in labeled containers, claiming she always cooked too much. I'd help fix things: her Wi-Fi, a loose doorknob, a side table that needed assembling. Mrs. Green saw me leaving the Monroe house with a toolbox one afternoon. "Very handy," she said, smiling. It felt like a loaded comment. That evening, Claire texted me for the first time in weeks. "Thanks again for the Wi-Fi help. I can finally watch my shows without screaming at the router." I sent back, "Glad it worked." Then added, "What are you watching?" she told me. We texted for an hour about TV shows and nothing important. And I realized I'd been checking my phone all evening, waiting for her typing dots to appear. The storm came out of nowhere. 1 minute the sky was clear. The next, dark clouds rolled in and rain hammered down like the world was ending. I was on my porch, bringing in chairs, when I saw Claire running from her car with grocery bags, getting soaked. "Hey," I called out, "come here." She ran over, laughing and breathless, and we both squeezed under my small porch overhang. The rain was loud, heavy. The smell of hot asphalt rose around us. Her hair was plastered to her face. Her shirt clung to her shoulders. She set down the bags and laughed again, wiping water from her eyes. "I thought I had time," she said. "Weather lied. It always does." We stood there, close but not touching. The hum of the storm replaced the usual sprinklers. "I don't mind storms," she said after a moment. "They make it impossible to pretend everything's fine." I glanced at her. "Is everything not fine?" She smiled. Sad. "What do you think?" I think you're really good at pretending. I learned from the best. My mother could smile through anything, taught me that appearances matter more than feelings. That sounds exhausting. It is. The rain kept falling. We weren't getting any drier, but neither of us moved to leave. I heard you last year, she said suddenly. Before we really talked. You were on the phone with your friend. Mark, I think. And you said... She paused, looked at me. You said if I were single, you'd marry me tomorrow. My stomach dropped. Claire, I pretended not to hear, but I never forgot it. I didn't know what to say. I know it was a joke, she continued. Half a joke, but it stayed with me. It wasn't entirely a joke. She reached up, adjusting my collar without thinking. Her fingers brushed my neck. We both froze. She was so close I could see water droplets on her eyelashes. For one heartbeat, I thought we might kiss. Then she pulled back, breath shaking. We don't cross that line, she whispered. Okay. I mean it. I know. The storm began to ease. She picked up her grocery bags, gave me a small, broken smile, and ran back to her house through the fading rain. I stood there, fingers gripping the porch rail, watching water drip off the eaves. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she might hear it from next door. Days turned into weeks. We settled into something dangerous and careful. Late-night texts about shows we were both watching. Tea shared across the fence, mugs clinking softly on the wood. Conversations that lasted until the sprinklers came on. She told me about her childhood, about how she'd married Richard because he was stable and successful and everything she thought she should want. I told her about my mom. Single mother, double shifts. How I learned to be low maintenance because asking for things felt like a burden. You're not a burden, Claire said one night, her voice fierce. You know that, right? I didn't answer. Emily called during one of those weeks, and for once I sounded happy. You seem better, she said. I have a really good neighbor. Daniel. It's fine. We're just friends. But I heard the doubt in her voice. Mrs. Green mentioned one morning that she'd seen lights on late at the Monroe house. It's nice Claire has company when Richard travels so much, she added. Her tone suggested she'd noticed more than late-night lights. The HOA organized a potluck the following Saturday. I brought a mediocre pasta salad. Claire brought something elegant in a glass dish. At the potluck, neighbors teased us about how easily we talked. Like old friends, someone said. Then Richard showed up. He'd come home early from a trip, and suddenly Claire's posture changed. She became more formal, more careful. He shook my hand. Firm grip. Daniel, right? Thanks for helping Claire with the house stuff. No problem. His eyes said he wasn't entirely sure there wasn't a problem. That night, I heard muffled voices through the windows. Not quite an argument, but tense. I saw Claire's silhouette pacing in the kitchen. The porch light stayed off. And I realized, lying there in the dark, that I cared less about my own reputation than I did about how she might be seen. About whether Mrs. Green's comments might turn into something worse. About whether we'd already crossed a line without meaning to. The hum of sprinklers felt louder than usual in the silence. A week later, I was watering the single potted plant on my porch when I heard two neighbors talking on the sidewalk. They didn't see me. Claire spends a lot of time with that tenant, one said. Well, her husband's never home. Can you blame her for wanting company? I'm just saying, it looks a certain way. They laughed and moved on. I stood there, hose in hand, feeling sick. I texted Claire. You okay? She didn't respond for 3 hours. When she finally did, it was brief. Busy with a project, Talk later. That evening, Richard's car arrived earlier than usual. The low engine hum vibrated through the quiet street. I heard them through the open windows. Not shouting, but tense. Too friendly with the tenant. Daniel is just a neighbor, Richard. Someone told me you're outside with him late at night. We talk, that's all. We talk. I couldn't hear the rest. Later, taking out the trash, I saw Richard on his porch. He walked over. Daniel. He nodded. Professional. Distant. Hey. Thanks for helping Claire with the house stuff, the Wi-Fi and all that. No problem. She mentioned you've been helpful. He paused. I appreciate it, but I've got it from here. It wasn't a threat, just a boundary being drawn. Of course, I said. He nodded once and went back inside. That night, Claire's lights went off early. No texts, no porch light lingering. I stood at my window, hand pressed against the wooden frame, and knew something had shifted. The next evening I heard them again. Richard's voice, controlled but firm. People are talking, Claire. Let them talk. I'm not comfortable with... With what? With me having a friend? With you being outside alone with a younger man every night while I'm working to support us. Silence. Then Claire's voice, quieter. You're right. I'll be more careful. My phone buzzed around 10. We need to be more careful. Someone talked to Richard. I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. Typed, I understand. Then added, Are you okay? She didn't respond. An hour later, I heard Richard's car leave. The low hum faded down the street. Through my window, I saw Claire alone at her kitchen table, fingers wrapped around a mug. Porch light off. I wanted to go to her, wanted to say something that would fix this. Instead, I sat on my couch, phone face down, and accepted that the line we'd been walking just got a lot narrower. 2 days later, I saw luggage by the Monroe front door. My chest tightened. Claire came out to load the car, saw me at the mailbox, and crossed to the fence. We're going away for a while, she said. Quiet. Practiced. Richard thinks we need a reset. That's probably good. Is it? She looked at me. Really looked at me. I don't know anymore. Claire, I know what this looks like. What we look like. She twisted the chain at her neck where her wedding ring hung. But nothing happened. You know that, right? I know. Then why does it feel like something did? I didn't have an answer. Richard appeared, loading the last bag. He gave me a polite nod. Nothing more. The car pulled away. I stood, there watching, until it disappeared. Days passed. Then weeks. I checked my phone constantly, saw nothing from her, threw myself into work, met deadlines, took on extra projects I didn't need. Mark dragged me to a bar one night. I barely touched my drink. What's wrong with you? He asked. Nothing. You've been weird for weeks. Did something happen with the neighbor? No. Daniel. I said no. He let it drop, but I saw the concern in his eyes. I went on a dating app date because Emily suggested it might help. Coffee with a woman named Sarah who was nice and funny and perfectly fine. I compared her laugh to Claire's the entire time. The date ended early. Meanwhile, the Monroe house sat mostly dark. The garden started to wilt. Dead roses, faded cushions on the porch, paint peeling on a flower pot. Richard's car appeared occasionally, but never Claire's. I never knocked, never asked, just watched the house slowly lose the careful attention Claire used to give it. One night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I knew. We're going to focus on us for a while. Please don't contact me. I read it 50 times, deleted the text thread, then restored it from backup because I couldn't let go completely. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, back against the bed, listening to the hum of sprinklers outside, wondering if this was how it ended. A joke proposal, a card under a door, a storm, and then nothing. Orchestrated narrative arc spanning remaining chapters toward conclusion. I need to continue covering the remaining chapters. The long, quiet period, leading up to Daniel's 30th birthday, the plastic ring, Claire's return, their new boundaries, and the final open-ended conclusion. I'm aiming to wrap up around 4,000 words total for part 2. Months crawled by. Summer turned to fall. I worked, ate, slept, repeated. Emily called weekly, sensing something was wrong, but never quite getting the truth out of me. "You sound tired," she said. "Just work." "Daniel?" "I'm fine, Em, really." I wasn't. I went on 2 more dates. Both ended the same way. Me realizing I was looking for someone who wasn't available, and never would be. Mark stopped inviting me out as much. Said I'd gone full hermit mode. He wasn't wrong. The Monroe house became a ghost I lived next to. Richard's car came and went. The garden died slowly. No one watered the roses. Mrs. Green commented one afternoon that it was unusual to see the Monroe place looking so unloved. I said nothing. By the time my 30th birthday appeared on the calendar, I'd stopped caring about it. Mark called a week before, enthusiastic. "Big 3-0, man. We're doing something." "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I don't want to celebrate." "Daniel, you can't just—" "I can, and I am." He tried arguing. I hung up. Emily texted, asking about plans. I ignored it. I spent the day before my birthday working on a website redesign that didn't need to be done for another month. Anything to avoid thinking. That night, I microwaved dinner, watched half a show, and turned off my phone. Went to bed. Stared at the dark silhouette of the Monroe house through my curtains. Told myself their story was over. That whatever we had, or thought we had, died with a text message months ago. I almost believed it. My 30th birthday arrived with sunlight and missed calls. Mark, Emily, a couple of co-workers. I ignored all of them, made coffee, burned toast for old time's sake, opened the door to grab a package I'd ordered and saw it. A small box on the welcome mat. No delivery label. Just my name and handwriting I'd memorized. My hands shook opening it. Inside was a cheap plastic ring, the kind you get in a birthday cake, and a note. Still proposing over fences? So I sat down hard on the kitchen floor, reread the note 10 times, looked up at the Monroe house, no car in the driveway, porch light off, no obvious sign anyone was there. When did she leave this? Was she back? What did it mean? I placed the ring next to the old card on my nightstand, the one from a year ago that I'd never thrown away. You shouldn't joke about things we both feel. I stood at my window for an hour, watching the Monroe house, waiting for any sign of movement. Nothing. Mark called again. I finally answered. "Happy birthday, asshole." "Thanks. I'm coming over. I have beer. You can't stop me." He showed up an hour later, sat in my backyard, and talked at me while I mostly listened. "You've been in a funk for months," he said. "I know something happened. You don't have to tell me, but you need to snap out of it." "I'm trying. Try harder." He left at sunset. I stood alone in the backyard as the hum of sprinklers started. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Check the fence. My heart stopped. I walked outside slowly, looked at the Monroe house. The porch light was on. For the first time in months, that warm yellow glow cut through the evening, and sitting on her back steps, barely visible through the fence slats, was Claire. I walked to the fence. She stood, crossed her yard to meet me. Up close, she looked different. Thinner, tired, but still herself. The chain at her neck still held her wedding ring, but the ring wasn't on her finger anymore. "Happy birthday," she said softly. "You're back?" "I am." We stood there, fence between us, the porch light casting shadows across both our faces. "I got your note," I said. "I know." "What does it mean?" She smiled. Sad. "I don't know yet." We talked for an hour that night. She told me what happened in careful, measured words. She and Richard tried counseling, spent time apart, worked on communication, all the things you're supposed to do when a marriage is falling apart. "We're in a living separately together arrangement now," she said. "He travels most of the time. When he's home, we're polite, distant, like roommates who used to love each other." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's not your fault." But we both knew I was part of it. Not the cause, but part of the equation. "I'm not leaving him," she said clearly. "Not right now. I'm trying to figure out who I am besides someone's wife." I nodded. Didn't push. "I missed you," she admitted. "These past months, I'd see your light on and want to text you, want to just talk about nothing, about everything. I missed you too. But we can't go back to what we had before. It's not fair to anyone. What do we do then?" She thought for a moment. We set boundaries, real ones. So we did. Right there at the fence, we outlined rules. Morning coffee chats were okay. Helping with practical things was okay. No late-night texting. No going inside each other's homes unless absolutely necessary. "I need to know I can be your friend without destroying everything else in my life," she said. "I understand." She touched the chain at her neck. "This ring isn't a promise to him anymore. It's a reminder to myself of the person I want to be." "And who's that?" "Someone who doesn't run away from hard things. Someone who can feel something real and still make the right choice." The porch light stayed on longer that night. When she finally went inside, I stood at the fence, fingers on the rough wood, feeling a strange mix of hope and heartbreak. The next morning, I woke to coffee smell and citrus cleaner. Went outside with my mug. She was already at the fence, hair still damp from a shower. "Morning," she said. "Morning." We talked about the weather, about work, about the neighborhood. It felt normal, careful, but warm. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a new rhythm. Morning chats, brief, easy. She mentioned counseling sessions in vague terms. I told her about client projects. Mark noticed I seemed more stable and joked about my funk finally lifting. Emily called and invited me to visit. I went, spent a weekend away from the cul-de-sac. It felt good to have a life outside of one quiet street. When I got back, I brought Claire a coffee blend I'd found. "Souvenir," I said, handing it over the fence. "From 2 states away?" "Don't overthink it." She smiled. "Thank you." Our texts stayed minimal, practical. "Your package was delivered to our porch." That kind of thing. The emotional weight had lifted, but so had the intensity. It felt safer and flatter, like a photo of something that used to be alive. Late summer came. One quiet evening, weeks into our careful routine, Claire called me over to the back steps instead of the fence. We sat on opposite sides of the property line, mugs in hand, crickets filling the silence where sprinklers used to hum. "Counseling is slow," she said. "Richard and I aren't fighting, but we're not exactly close either." "Is it helping?" "I'm realizing how much of myself I muted, for years, just trying to be the wife he needed instead of the person I am." "That sounds exhausting." "It was." She looked at me. "You reminded me I still exist, as a person with interests and humor and opinions." "Claire, I'm not asking you to wait for me. I'm not asking you to play some undefined role in my life." She set down her mug. "I just wanted to say thank you for seeing me when I was trying so hard not to be seen." The weight of everything we'd been through settled between us. She stood, stepped closer to the fence. So did I. Without turning it into something we'd have to explain or apologize for, she reached through a gap in the wooden slats. Her hand found mine, and then she leaned in, just enough that our foreheads touched through the fence. Brief, tender, loaded with everything we couldn't say. I felt her breath on my skin, smelled her shampoo, heard the soft rustle of her blouse as she moved. Then she pulled back, whispering, "Thank you." She straightened, smiled like nothing had happened. "Good night, Daniel." "Good night." I stayed there for several minutes after she went inside, fingers resting on the rough wood, feeling the ghost of her touch. Weeks passed. We kept our boundaries. Morning coffee, brief texts, occasional jokes. Her garden slowly came back to life. Not perfect like before, but living. Richard's car came and went. I saw him once, unloading groceries. He nodded at me. Polite, but distant. I went on another date. This one was better. I didn't compare her to anyone. Didn't spend the whole time wishing I were somewhere else. It didn't lead anywhere, but it felt like progress. Mrs. Green stopped commenting about Claire and me. The neighborhood accepted we were just friendly. Nothing more. One night, working late, I noticed Claire's porch light still on past midnight. I stood at my window, watching her silhouette move through the kitchen. Mug in hand, alone. I wanted to go downstairs, walk to the fence, ask if she was okay. But we'd made an agreement. Some lines stayed uncrossed. I stood there understanding something I'd fought against for months. Some connections are meant to exist in that in-between space, not as affairs, not as grand romances, but as quiet proof that we were both alive enough to feel something forbidden and still choose restraint. I turned away from the window, turned off my lamp, but paused as the faint glow of her porch light seeped under my curtain. We never mentioned that birthday joke again. But every time her porch light glows past midnight, it feels like she said yes in a language only the two of us were ever meant to understand. I lay in bed, listening to the distant hum of sprinklers, and accepted that this was enough. Had to be enough. The space between what we wanted and what we were allowed to take. Morning would come. We'd have coffee across the fence. She'd tell me about a difficult client. I'd complain about a website bug. We'd laugh at the same things. And the ache in my chest would stay manageable. Because some doors don't need to open or close. They can just stay quietly, dangerously, a little bit ajar, and maybe that's exactly where they're supposed to be. Some doors don't open or close. They just stay quietly, dangerously, a little bit ajar.